Hi, Roy. Welcome to the Power Talk Show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and joining us today. So, before we start and dive into a conversation, can I understand a bit about your professional background? And you are a multi level, multi dimensional CEO. What led to your entrepreneur journey?
That's a great question because I don't have what you would call a traditional background. I have been adaptable. We all think that survival of the fittest, and that's not true. It's really the survival of the most adaptable. So my career has been created for me by mentors and people who have trusted in me long before I learned how to trust in myself. A quick highlight, I've been the president of five Inc. 500 companies. I've been public company CEO and president. I was part of a group that was the number 11 fastest growing small publicly traded company on the Inc. list. So I have lots of backgrounds working with very dynamic entrepreneurs, founders, and people who are really just changing the world, really changing the world. They're making a great investment in themselves and in how people are choosing to live their lives.
Wow, that's wonderful. And that's an interesting background to begin with. Roy, can you tell me what is the most interesting product or service or a company that you're working on right now?
Well, currently I'm doing a lot of work in the sustainable energy world. And as you know, in the United States, the Big Beautiful Act has really put a kibosh a little bit on that. But I've been working in and out of the sustainable world now for about 15 years with a great company called Hudson, started out at Hudson Clean Energy Partners, and today it's called Hudson Sustainable, where I serve as the chief operating officer, and we're really making a significant impact on how people are going to choose to live their lives, giving a lot of choice to people about their ability to go to alternative energy at the appropriate time if it's right for them.
Wow, wonderful. That's interesting. as as you mentioned, you are into business sustainability. There's so many things happening around the world, and there's corporate taking sustainable measures as well. There's carbon exchanges, carbon offset projects. What's your take on that?
Actually, the founder of the organization, a guy by the name of Neil Arbach, he's working on a huge, and when I talk about huge, I'm talking about global impact. Lomia tree, which is a hardwood, which will has the ability to offset carbon as a sustainability project on a globalized basis. So that's one of our passion projects inside of Hudson today. For any lots of detail, you'll need to talk to the experts in the field. I'm the good looking one. They're the smart ones. It's a matter of figuring out a way to invest in not only my children's future, but in their children's future. And that's what we really need to be looking at. I think a long time ago we had this thing that said think globally but act locally, which I think is still appropriate. I think there's a significant difference between first world, second world, and third world countries and their ability to make contributions to the choices of how people are going to live a sustainable lifestyle. If you're a prosperous country, you have an economic and financial and emotional and philosophical obligation. If you're a third world country and you're worried about survival, then what you have to do is the best you can in the moment you're in. So I think there's lots of opportunity out there on a global basis and then on a local basis.
Absolutely. And that's interesting because I have two parts to this question now. There's this AI and technology advancements happening around the world. And with AI and this large LLM models, there comes big data centers. So how does AI and technology and big data centers impact the environment, and how does sustainability come into the picture?
I'm going to tell you a story. I remember from a long time ago when the first personal computers came out, and there was a guy named Ken Olsen who had a company called Olsen Computer. And at the time, he was a godfather of the industry. And he said there is absolutely no reason that any individual would need a computer at home. To supplement that, Xerox was trying to be sold to IBM, and IBM's executives at the time in the 60s looked at the global ability of copiers and said that there's only a maximum of 5 or 6,000, and I have 4 copiers in my home, or 4 printers in my home. So as time changes, things dramatically change. Steve Jobs said, "I want computer power in every person's hand." And today with AI, it has significantly changed our ability to get perspective, to get insight. It's made it easier and easier. Google, we thought, was a great breakthrough. And today, AI is going to take it to a very different level. There's a movie, an animated movie called Wall-E,
Yeah.
which existed. And I think that's an animated movie that has a lot of very important lessons for people, because the more convenient it becomes for the person, the more reliant we become on technology, then eventually that's going to end. So I think we need to make sure we have that real balance between its utilization. I use AI as a coach. It has become an incredible part of what I do every day. I ask it questions that I never thought I would ask questions. I ask it to record things and then give me insights. But if you're looking for a mind shifting tool, and it's a tool. It's not a play toy, it's a tool. I mean, you can play with it if you want, but it's a tool. If you use it as a tool and you ask it to coach you, and it looks for your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, you're going to have a much better, much more effective way in growing not only your business but your life. And I think that's a really important part. So I think as we grow, as we look at things, things will change so dramatically that we can't even envision for the moment how quickly it will affect us. Because if you look back 2 years ago, AI wasn't really talked about all that much.
Absolutely makes sense. So, Roy, you have been into the business world for such a long period. What
It's a
changes and
polite way of calling me old. I like to say experience.
experience, yes. So you see, like there's been so many transitions into how we do business and how business has changed post COVID era and now a post AI era, and now we are still growing and understanding about LLM models. How do you see, like, what would be the future? How will ease of business take place?
Well, I think that the global economy right now is already teaching us how quickly people can do it. I see 24-year-olds doing $30 million a month in revenue, which was unheard of. The tools and technology is very different today. And I think Tony Robbins has a really interesting take on it where he says resources aren't as important as resourcefulness. And if you really look at this, we have so many resources available to us that our mind has to create that resourcefulness so we can grow and develop businesses and have ideas and insights. And as long as we have determination and really are willing to learn and adapt, we'll be able to forge our own future. If those people who are waiting for someone else to do it for them or live at affect, they're impacted, my computer isn't fast enough or this. I mean, you can create as many excuses as you want to fail. But what you really have to determine is what are the reasons you're going to succeed. And that comes from a resourcefulness, which comes from determination. I have a book coming out called The Entrepreneur's Toolbox. And in there, I go through all kinds of tools that I've developed over, as you say, a 40-year career. Because I believe if you have a toolbox and you go into being a master craftsman, you're going to be a lot better off than just picking up a rock or a hammer that exists. So in that toolbox, I say if you want to be a pro, PRO, persistency, resourcefulness, and optimism. Persistency, according to TED Talks, is grit, is the thing that is most important, that discipline to continue to go. Resourcefulness is the R, like Tony Robbins says, it's not the resources that you have, which are people, time, and money. It's your resourcefulness, it's your application of that. And I really believe that optimism bias is a really critical. That's that optimism that if you have gratitude and expect the world to open up and provide you things, and we have lots of self-help books that will talk about that and law of attraction. But I believed in this for 40 some years as a business executive, and I truly believe it happens. So it's persistency, resourcefulness, and optimism, and then you're a pro.
Absolutely. Roy, with 40 years of business experience now, I want to understand your take on the current business affairs. Everybody, some say like there's economic slowdown, there's war in some parts of the world, Trump tariffs came, and now, there's no news about it, or there's news to some part of the world. What do you see what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years?
If I knew that, I would put all of my resources into fintech, right? I would be looking at the financial market in order to get rich, and I would be looking at the social market in order to make that money do good. So it's a dynamic enterprise, and we don't know what will be ahead of us, but we do know it will be something. And it doesn't matter what it is; it matters what our response to what it is. I talk with people all day long, and there's a thing that I point out. It's called polarity responding. So if I say to my wife, "You look good today," she'll say to me, "Oh, I didn't look good yesterday." It's like, no, 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 no. That's not what I meant. But in business, we say either or. And it's never either or, it's yes and. And if we can replace an either or mentality with a yes and mentality, we can really begin to understand that just because something exists, it's either an opportunity or an obstacle. Opportunity and obstacle is purely how you want to go deal with it, right? So we want to focus in on the openings that we have, not the trees that are blocking away. So when you're looking at things, I believe a yes and opportunity is there. Obstacles can be opportunities, and in that looking for what I call the opportunistic entrepreneurship. Opportunistic entrepreneurship. You identify a problem, you fill it with a solution. You identify an opportunity, you attack it with gusto and vigor. And when you look at what some of these people are doing, it's absolutely incredible. And disruption in every business area is going to be there. I think it can become, I'm not going to say more predictable with the utilization of AI, but I'm going to say that if you utilize AI as just an explanation of what will happen in the future, if you utilize it, you'll prosper. If you're victimized by it, you'll suffer.
Absolutely. Makes sense. What kind of principles do you go after, when you are looking at a business leadership position?
Yeah, business leadership for me, if I'm being asked to take a business leadership position within an organization, I tend to have a few criteria. One is, are they doing good, right? Is the goal of the entrepreneur more than just making money, but making a significant contribution? Is it a place where optimism is something that is needed into the organization? Is it faith-based, whatever faith it is? Can we as a group of people come together with a common goal to accomplish things? When I look at the entrepreneur's journey, and I wrote a book called Entrepreneurial Transitions, and it was the first book to talk about the behaviors of entrepreneurs and then the impact of their behaviors on their organization. And it starts out with entrepreneurial genius, then benevolent dictator, then disassociate director. And then when you develop all the right skills, you can become a visionary leader. What I try and do in those organizations is find the right type of an entrepreneur who can be a visionary leader, who can understand it. I think there's a book called Traction, which talks about the visionary and then
Mhm.
the person who executes it. So you have to have that yin and yang in the business in order to get to that point, the dreamer and the doer. The Steve Jobs and the Steve Wozniak, and there's lots of dynamic duos that exist. And I think it's a really important component is that every single day you're going to make a contribution. And I have a tool for that, right? For an organization and what I would look at in this organization, can I apply one of my tools, which is called the 6 R's, right? What is the role of the business? What are the rules of the business? What's the responsibility of the business to its community, to its people? What's the relationship it wants to have? What results are we looking for and what rewards will become a part of that? And then with those 6 R's in the organization, I try and apply that to then every operating portion of the business right down to every person of the business. So a person who's working in marketing understands the 6 R's for the organization, the division they're working for, the department they're in, and their own role. And so that they can really understand how they are making a significant contribution continuously. So when I look for what I'm going to do next, I look for interesting things with interesting people that are going to have an impact on the way in which the world is going to operate in the future.
Absolutely. That's
So
very interesting, Roy. As you mentioned about the tools that you have, are you somehow planning in the future to, build a course or build a platform so that, everybody can come and explore it?
absolutely, yes is the answer. And I have little tools like this is my 6 C's. This is my 6-step decision making. I have the 6 R's. I have the 6 E's. The 6 E's is about ideas, right? So when somebody comes to you with an idea, you embrace it. Give me your idea. And that is really important because oftentimes people listen to something just so that they can respond, right? Listen to learn, not to respond. So embrace it. Allow the person to educate you about that. Try and enhance that idea, right? Enhance that idea. Get excited about that idea. Empower people with that idea and then go execute that idea. But we all know that sometimes when somebody comes with an idea, you embrace it and you kind of go. When they educate you about it, you're kind of going. When you enhance it, you kind of go. And then you say, get excited about it. Empower people with it. Execute it, kill it, move on to the next thing, right? So it's a double-edged sword in that. But realistically, you still want that opportunity when people are coming to you as a fundamental rule of communication, that ability to effectively be a communicator, is you want to listen to learn, not to respond. And that's one of my tools. It's written on all my stuff. So when we look at these kinds of things, it's the matter of making sure that you're doing a good job as a person, being kind, and then making sure you're doing a great job as a leader in getting things accomplished for all the people in the organization and that contribute to it, including the customers, shareholders, vendors, etc.
Wonderful. And Roy, I really hope, someday in the future I get a hold of your tools that you are about to publish. One
Me too.
final question, Roy. Can you give me one piece of advice that you got, that change your perspective on how you do business at a professional as well as out on a personal scale?
One piece of advice is always really interesting because there's so many things that contribute to that one piece of advice.
Absolutely.
I will tell you that I have 3 business rules when I take over a company, and it's positive expectancy. We really believe things will work out. It's brilliance. The things that you are doing really are brilliant, right? And then it's accomplishment, not activities, but accomplishment. So when you're looking at things is can you be and expect optimism? Can you expect brilliance and can you accomplish things? And if the answer to that is yes, then you have an obligation to do it. Look, we all know what to do in many ways, but there's a big gap between what you're doing and how you're going about doing it. Simon Sinek says if you understand your why, then your what and your how will become easy. Other people say if you know when it needs to be done, right, write your goals down by when and you'll be able to accomplish it. All of those things working in synergy. Really, this is the most effective business tool I've utilized over the years. Be clear on what you're trying to do, understand why you're trying to do it, make sure you know how to do it, make sure who's doing it with you, and then make sure you know when it's supposed to be done by. And if you just did that, things would become so much easier in the future.
That's some great piece of advice. Roy, thank you so much for joining our podcast, joining our channel today. It was
Thank,
a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
thank you. Have a great one.